Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Shermy. I have a lot of different names and I just really like lore. With the season coming to a close, and because we're pretty much done with everything in terms of new lore content, I wanted to take a minute and kind of discuss my thoughts on the new seasonal story cadence, and do a review of my thoughts on Season 2. Now, there is a lot of lore stuff that I've covered over this season. You can just kind of look on my channel over the last couple weeks if you want a specific topic, but this is going to be an overall kind of thing, so we're not going to be summarizing each thing piece by piece. However, I am going to be critiquing a lot here because I have a lot of thoughts on how they're doing the seasonal story now, and a lot of it I think could be improved, basically. So, if you like that kind of thing, don't forget to like and subscribe. Not sure how long this one is going to be, so let's just get right into it. So, at the time of me recording this, we have 2 lore drops left. Those are going to be for Hero 52. Now, this isn't going to be involving Hero 52 in this video, but we are going to be talking about her a little bit towards the end, but I just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, to start, let's talk about the new lore, and kind of the weird importance of it all. The first thing, and obviously the most important thing, is we got a really cool amount of lore this season. Obviously not as much as last season, but a really good chunk. It's really cool to see Overwatch focusing on the narrative again. It's something that I've wanted for a long time, and I was kind of interested to see how we were going to do it this season, since last season was the intro season. But now we have a better idea, and that's kind of why I wanted to make this video. The other thing I really liked was Sierra's backstory and the SCP serum. I almost wish that the SCP serum and everything with Sierra was given more comics or stories this season. I would have really liked Sierra to kind of be the main character this season, which she really hasn't been, and I'll talk about that later in this video, but I did like that overall hook. I wasn't really expecting that when we were going to Grand Mesa. And aside from all that, I did just kind of like the character dissections, but I will be getting into that in a bit on how I feel about it all, because I have a lot of feelings about the season's narrative. So, we got a couple things this season, and some of it was really, really good. Cassidy's comic, Crossroads, was a highlight for me. I think this was probably the best bit of lore this entire season. It not only moved the narrative forward, but it also had really good character moments for Cassidy and, of course, Ash. Now, I bring up those two things there, character moments and the story moving forward, because not everything does this, and this is kind of my critique of the narrative this season. There's some really good things like the Crossroads comic and of course the original Hero trailer, but I think a lot of things kind of drop the ball. And with that, I'm talking about Moira's little short story there. So there's kind of a difference that I want to discuss here. I think there is a kind of need that we need to push the narrative forward, and I think that's what we need to focus on in these story drops that are on the roadmap, but some of these are just kind of small character beats. And while those aren't bad, it's not really moving anything forward in a way a lot of people care about. Everything else this season, such as Venture's Adventures, has been kind of off on its own, and this is the struggle that I'm really trying to get at here. The story doesn't really have any cohesion right now, like at all. There's some type of overarching thing, like, for example, the Watchpoint Grand Mesa attack, but that wasn't even really focused on at all here aside from the Crossroads comic and the Hero trailer, and even then, it was really disjointed. Now, in terms of the actual stories themselves, I think they're all great for character stuff, but not good for an overarching story. This used to be fine when we were getting little story beats here and there, kind of one-off, but since everything is kind of leading into the next season now, we kind of need those connecting pieces. And, of course, I'm saying this, and we go towards the Fall of the Sparrow, which was the last story beat we kind of got. Now, this one is setting up Season 3, which in and of itself isn't that bad. But, of course, the issue is we're not in Season 3, we're in Season 2. And this storyline with Genji is really cool, but this should have been focused on characters involved in Season 2, like maybe Deadlock, or even Sierra more. Sierra really needed a lot more here, but I'm getting ahead of myself again. Everything with the Fall of a Sparrow story in particular, this is when I noticed this issue kind of come up. There's no really overarching story, no overarching kind of narrative that's really easy to follow. If you're not following everything religiously like me, or listening to the in-game interactions, I've talked to a couple friends who don't do that, and it's extremely hard to follow and kind of makes them not want to follow it. I talked to a friend the other day who literally told me that they only really watch my stuff on it because my stuff is a bit more cohesive and I kind of connect things together better than what actually gets told or explained in-game, which is kind of a red flag to me. You shouldn't have to look to expanded material like my videos or external things like the wiki or anything to really get a good grasp of it. So The storyline this season really needed to be more tight, and hopefully next season it's going to be better, but the overall cohesion of the narrative this season was something that was really, really hit or miss, and it's kind of my biggest gripe with this season so far. But also we should just talk about everything going on with Sierra, because she's kind of the main star of the season, and this is where my second big critique of everything comes up. Sierra was pretty fun. I liked Sierra as a character. I think her backstory is really neat. However, for the overarching narrative, she doesn't really add a lot. And this is kind of an issue. So, for a season that's dedicated to Sierra and Watchpoint Grand Mesa, neither of these two things got a lot of focus. With Sierra, I was kind of hoping we would get a little bit more on her backstory, get one clue maybe to what's going on with her mom, kind of getting that ball moving a bit, but nothing really moved there. That's going to be a longer form thing, but that kind of goes back to the issue with this season. Sierra really didn't do much at all. She had her hero trailer where she was involved with Grand Mesa, and she was in Overwatch Undivided for a little bit. But in Overwatch Undivided, it was pretty much just small appearances. So Sierra really needed a lot more this season, and that's kind of my biggest thing with her here. Sierra, unfortunately, got really the short end of the stick. And it's a shame, because I think Sierra's story and character is really great. Next season, I already know they're going to be correcting this with how much the next hero is integral to the narrative of next season, so not really worried about that there, but it is a shame that Sierra kinda got nothing going on here. And of course, I should mention Helix as well. Helix was the one thing that we kind of knew going into all this that was going to be the kind of connecting tissue for this hero, and, well, they're pretty much not important at all. And I get subverting expectations and that kind of thing, and that's pretty cool, and I was fine with it at first, but because Sierra's character didn't really get anything this season, I was really disappointed. I would have really liked if instead of this Moira story we got, or maybe in addition to this Moira story, we got a story about Sierra telling Helix she's leaving. Maybe we get to see how Helix reacts to it, seeing the kind of internal politics of the faction. It would move things a lot forward and would be a better epilogue to me than what exactly we got here with Moira's part, because even then, that wasn't really the best epilogue. Now, that's just one example for what I would do to swap things up a bit. Helix was a pretty big sore spot to me, and it's kind of surprising we didn't get really anything on them at all. I wasn't really expecting a ton on them, but you know what I mean, just a little schmidge. And of course, with Sierra as well, we have to talk about her ongoing mystery with her mom. Like I said earlier, I am really interested to see where that storyline goes, but we just didn't really get a ton on it, and the SCP stuff kind of felt out of nowhere. I did like how everything with the SCP and the Vault and Emery and Freya stealing the SCP serum, but that is actually the only thing that I feel like was connected well this season. Everything with the serum itself. Now, the serum is a pretty cool MacGuffin and kind of a cool connecting tissue piece, but overall, I don't feel like Sierra had much to say on it yet. Granted, this is going to change in the future, but I do wish there was just a little more to make it feel like the situation was a bit more important than how it ended up being. Because right now it feels like nothing really came of it, or nothing's going to be coming of it for a while. In fact, if Overwatch didn't show up, I don't really think anything would have changed. But this kind of goes into a broader issue I've talked about with a couple of friends of mine. Overwatch hasn't really done anything yet. So this is where I'm going to start talking about Overwatch Undivided for a bit. I'm going to try not to talk about spoilers too much, but I may mention a couple things here and there, so be warned. So, Overwatch really hasn't done much as a faction, and in Undivided, I wasn't really looking towards it to be a thing that kind of moves the plot forward. I thought it was going to be more of a slice-of-life thing for Overwatch, but it is actually connected to the main storyline. Things happen in the comic that then happen in-game, which is kind of an issue of itself. Since the webtoon is not available anywhere in-game, it makes things extremely hard to follow. And I mean very hard if you don't have webtoons. If you're just an average viewer, for example, or average player, and you open up the roadmap and you see, oh, there's a Genji story called The Fall of a Sparrow, and it says Genji went to Japan, you're kind of like, huh, how did that happen? I thought he was with Overwatch. And also, most people don't even really know that Sierra's with Overwatch. I know she had an animated piece with Sojourn, but even then, a lot of people still don't even know, which kind of shows that people aren't really looking towards these lore drops. But talking about Overwatch and getting back on topic of that, Overwatch as a faction hasn't really done much to shake up the world, and they haven't really been the main characters to an extent. I do hope next season we get to see Overwatch save the day, or at least kind of be in the spotlight a bit more alongside Hanzo, Kiriko, and Mizuki fighting the Hashimoto. Overwatch desperately needs a win, so I'm really hoping next season could shake things up for them and help them get into a better position. everything with the IJC getting ready to shut down Overwatch is showing that things are not looking great, so they really do need a win to kind of prove that they exist still. I thought there was going to be that moment this season, but yeah, didn't actually happen. So hopefully we get to see that next season. So let's talk about Undivided fully now. Undivided is a really fun time and I really enjoy it, but the delivery and overall execution of it has been pretty bad, to say the least. Because they do the locked chapters, which if you don't know, the locked chapters you have to pay a small fee for to get to read early, but they eventually come out for free in a few weeks. This effectively kills all discussion of the chapters online because people aren't sure what is allowed to be discussed, what people can't discuss yet, people don't want to spoil, other people will spoil. It causes an entire mess and kind of makes people not want to interact with it in general. But aside from the paid chapters, also just having this as an external piece with no indication in-game at all that this is a part of the main story is a really big issue. I know Undivided is on the website, you can click it and it pulls up webtoons, but this needs to be in-game somewhere, pretty desperately. If anything of this video gets implemented or gets heard, this part in particular, please, we need the Undivided series in the story tab, just something to get people to look towards it. But that's kind of the biggest issue with Undivided. And I know there's been a lot of critiques and discussions about Undivided online, but I really don't have much of a problem with it. The only thing I do have a problem with is the actual execution of it and, unfortunately, the delivery of how everything's coming to us. This is going to be the overarching thing for the rest of the year, so I'll probably have another update to talk about it in the future, but I can't even really make videos on Undivided because so many things are locked, and by the time they're out for everybody, half the people who would be interested in it already know it exists. So, how would I fix the entire narrative this season? Well, I've kind of talked about it here and there in a few aspects, and of course, I'm not a developer. This is just my kind of pipeline or idea of how I would fix things, so feel free to add anything you would change as well. So, if you look at everything we got this season, I think one issue that we have with these is just quality over quantity. All of these are pretty quality stories, but I think there's too many that don't really move the storyline forward in any way. So, I would probably remove those and replace them. Specifically, I would probably move Moira's, and I would probably get rid of or add a story additionally on top of Venture's story that we got. Now, those two are kind of the last things we got before the new hero, and they don't do a really good job at wrapping up anything. The Venture story kind of gets a pass since it's a Pride story, and that kind of doesn't really have to move the main narrative forward. It was really cool to see Lifeweaver and Venture again and all, but this one more so goes for the Moira story. Now, what would I replace these with? I talked about it earlier, but I would love to see a kind of epilogue thing from Helix's perspective with Sierra. Maybe get a little hint about what's going on with her mom, get an idea of how Sierra and Helix felt about each other, and get Sierra officially resigning, or at least leaving for now. That's another thing that's kind of up in the air if she's fully left or not, so this story could fit that. Now, the other story that I would add this season is this Moira epilogue. However, I would change it a little bit. I would probably make it so it's more about Talon generally than just Moira, or at least getting Vendetta involved, kind of explaining what her plan is for the serum and kind of seeing the ramifications in the short term rather than the long term. We need a little bit of a reaction or something a bit more to grab the audience. There's really cool moments in this, but I just don't think it's getting people excited or hyped up, so it needs a little bit more juice added to it. Aside from that, I think the season starts off really strong, and Sierra's comic would be pretty great, and then you get Crossroads, and then I would add these two, and then I almost wish we had a subsection for these kind of side stories with Venture's adventures. But the only real thing I would add to the roadmap, aside from all of this, is at the bottom, I would probably just put a giant bar that kind of signifies, hey, Undivided goes through the entire year. Read Undivided on Webtoons if you would like to hear more. That's pretty much it. I think if they added that, that would help out a ton, and it would make Cohesion a lot easier. So, yeah, those are most of my thoughts on everything and kind of my review of the season. If I had to give it a number, I would probably give this season a solid, maybe a 6.5. I don't think everything this season was bad by any means. In fact, I think it was really good comparatively to what we've gotten in the past, but I do think there's a lot of room for improvement. And all this kind of stuff is really helpful in shaping the overarching story going forward. I think the highlights for me, like I said before, was probably Sierra's backstory and then everything going on with kind of the SCP serum. Hero 52 is right around the corner, and I'm going to be making dedicated videos for her probably throughout this week or throughout next week, whenever I can really get time. I'm excited to see more about her, and you'll probably be able to hear my reactions and all that in a later video down the road. I hope this video was a little bit informative and you had fun listening to me kind of just yapping about this. Obviously, I'm not a developer, but it was just kind of fun getting my thoughts out there on how I would fix things with this season. But yeah, that's all from me. What did you guys think about this story, and what would you change with the season? Let me know down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.